image processing and live video stream manipulation, and we had to deal with all kinds of color issues and stuff. So I have a background, a little bit of a background in color space. And one of the things that was always hard to do is how do you visualize the color, all of the colors in a color space. Everybody who's used a paint program has seen the color picker. Um, and but it really doesn't. It doesn't. The color picker doesn't show you how these different color spaces are related to each other. So I set out to generate a 3D visualization model, and I got some inspiration from the guy on YouTube, and I quickly found out that in p5.js, which is a JavaScript pseudo port of the processing environment, which, if I remember right, is written in Java, and it's kind of a cool framework for building apps fairly quickly. One of the downsides to P5 is that it mostly runs in the browser. So if you want to connect it to an application like on a workstation, you're going to have to get it to talk to like Node.js, so that Node.js can talk to physical hardware a little bit easier. But there's examples of doing that too. So the website you want to go to check this out is p5js.org, and I've got everybody should be able to see this, right?
Yep.
And you got a whole list of stuff, all kinds of stuff you can go through. Um, you also notice it's I believe that this background, which is doing this random warp distortion, is actually a P5JS thing going on back there. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm sure it can do that. So if, I actually, again, I watched some tutorials on YouTube, and then I came right to here to the reference and start, because that's what I do. I read the docs first. And here they give you a pretty good outline of all the functions that are in the framework. Oh my goodness. I gotta remember to not use my wheel mouse, sorry. Okay, well, there's that. So we'll go back to here. There also are community contributed libraries, and this gives you a lot of information. If you want to download the framework into your project, this is a good place to come and see how to do it. Plus, there's a whole bunch of extensions to this framework that people in the community have built. So I haven't looked at too many of those, but there's a couple in here that might be real useful, like the sound one, if you want to add sound to the capability, that sort of thing. Uh, let's see. The other thing is there again. There's over here. Uh, there's a tutorial in here. I didn't bother to go in here. I just jumped in, started reading the reference, and started cranking up some code. So another section of this website is editor.p5js.org. So the cool thing about that is it gives you a working sandbox to just go play in. You don't have to download anything. You can come here. You don't need to actually set up an account, but if you're going to do anything with it, I definitely suggest you set up a free account. And so you can, if you don't have an account, you can't save your work, and you will eventually curse set yourself, because whenever you're writing code in this type of environment, you do have the ability to crash your browser. And if you do, and although you may not be crashing your browser, but you might get the page might lock up on you. You might violate an event queue or something. I don't know exactly what goes wrong, but you will lose all your work. So set up an account and save your stuff. In anyways, so you can see here, there's quite a bit of Java code in here, JavaScript code, and It's not just trivial stuff either. I created an object class to get some of the replicated pieces done. Created some within that class. I created some utility methods to get things to happen properly. So I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Uh-oh, I'm going to have to reload it. I keep forgetting that. Keep forgetting I use this mouse, this old Microsoft mouse that has a wheel on it, and I have to stop using the wheel in certain places. And what did I do?
Ron, when you were scrolling, it looked like you might have pasted something into there.
Yeah, but I didn't save it, did I?
I don't know. You could look down at line 48. Maybe maybe that's where it is.
Let's try a different copy. I don't know. Line 48. I gotta quit doing that.
Yeah, when you were scrolling earlier, it almost looked like something happened at the very bottom of the code. I thought I saw like some numbers change or something.
Yeah, let me refresh the page. And there we go. Okay, so here's the application running. And so what this is an RGB color cube. And I'm not going to spend that much time on it, but this is actually using the 3D capabilities of p5.js. And you'll see that, so I've got code in there that allows me to yank and spin this around in 2 dimensions. And if you kind of have to use your imagination. These are the outside walls of a cube. In the RGB color cube, this would be a solid thing, and the colors would continue to change inside the cube depending on what coordinates you use for RGB. So one thing I was doing here is I got these sliders down here, and I grab this guy, and you can see what's happening is I'm pulling that plane through the middle of the cube, and every time it moves, it's getting a different gradient. I'm going to pull this over a little bit. It shows you the slice through the what that 2-dimensional slice through the cube at that point would be. So you can see when I get to this end, this corner goes from white, and when I slide it all the way back, it goes to. It is a little misleading because this, even though I'm moving the red slider, it's moving it's moving the plane in the red direction. So this goes from black to red down here in the corner. So this opposite corner goes from aqua to white when you slide it, and you can and again you can move all these things around. You get some nice, cool pastel colors. But the point is you can just spin it around in 3D space. Interesting exercise in 3D manipulation. What eventually happens here is you get into a situation that is akin to something the guys at NASA know, or aircraft aerospace mechanic or engineers know about. It's called gimbal lock. It's because eventually you can rotate this so that to the point where it doesn't. Notice how it's rotating backwards now. I didn't put any code in there to fix that, but I just flipped it over and now it rotates right. So it gives you a good perspective on what these people who write 3D editors or graphic programs, what they got to go through to keep things sane. The other thing is I didn't render this with a graphics program. I actually just went in and did it one line of code at a time. And what you wind up doing is you render a face, and then before you add the next face, you have to spin everything 90 degrees in one axis. Is it 90 degrees? 90 degrees in one axis, and then you render another space, and then you flip it in the other axis, and then that's how you get all 3 of your panels associated. So
hey, Ron, is this
outputting
to Canvas or WebGL or?
This is I'll go through the code really fast, but cool. But it is WebGL, yeah. So and then there was a thing on here to Now these are circles that are drawn in 3D space, and you can tell they're in 3D space because the thing slices through them. And the point of that was to assist me in my presentation on color space theory. And I won't do the whole thing, but I'll just give you kind of a feel for that. So now we're looking through the cube, and we see a dark spot. That would be 0, 0, 0. I can flip this cube around, and this is where again I've inverted the coordinates, so you have to do things backwards. And now if you can actually look straight down on this cube, you can start to see a color wheel like you would see in a paint program or something like that, right? And then if we drag these all the way to the other side of the cube, and flip that way, that might be a better impression of the color cube. Now you would imagine in a color picker there's going to be hue and saturation bars or some other controls to allow you to, if I just bring these back to center, you can see how the saturation changes, and you get a whole different set of colors to pick off of. So, and then the idea of the circles was to show that another color space that that's related to RGB is hue, saturation, and color, and hue, saturation, and what's the other one? Hue, saturation, and level. I guess level or brightness. Yeah. So here you can see that this wheel, or this view of it gives you that wheel where your brightness is starting here and decreases as it moves physically away from you, or like perpendicular to the screen into the thing. But so here's your green color, your red color, your blue color. So your hue would be basically an angle between this point here and whatever point you pick, and the saturation would be the distance. So like if you pick this point over here, you can see you've got an angle. And actually, for me to get this in, I'm not going to bother, but and I forget what the angles are. Generally, I think the angles, a saturation of 0 is pure red. I may have that wrong, but you can see that you could measure an angle from this point to that red corner. That would give you an angle, and the saturation would be the distance from this point. So in here, you're about 50% saturated. You can see it goes from white more to red. Okay. And then the other color space that you see, though, is one of the other color spaces is for printing. It's the yellow, magenta, cyan space that printers use. And what do you know? You can see that same color space out on the edge of the cube, and it's interesting that even though in the RGB model you're using additive colors, in the printing space you're using negative or using subtractive process for determining the colors. But it's pretty cool that they actually just show up on the corners of the cube. So. So that's basically what it is. This was never intended to be a full end user project. It was just to be a visualization tool for a talk that I had given. I'm going to go ahead and stop it. I'll just go through there's like 200 lines of code here. I'm going to go through it real quick. We have a color cube axis class, and I'm not going to pretend that I followed best practices on building classes or objects. But what this does is it allows this color cube axis is what actually renders each one of those sliding panes through the cube. And so it's got methods in here to update the image and to regenerate the gradients. Now the thing is, people ask me why didn't I use a library to regenerate the gradient? Well, because most of the libraries, even the ones that allow you to pick 2 points, they don't do it exactly the way I needed it to do. This needs to be a perfectly perpendicular gradient. It's like doing a 2-dimensional gradient, and they have to be perpendicular. So I just wrote the code for it. That's all here. Here we get down to the p5.js stuff. You just create a setup function. Now, if you're doing this, if you download the framework and integrate it with your project, you won't write a setup function. The setup function it's an artifact of this sandbox. It's like it gets called when this thing launches. It gets called, and that's how you set stuff up. And that's where we set the size of the canvas here, and we tell it it's a WebGL canvas. I did notice that some of the graphic routines work a little differently, and 1 or 2 of them may a couple months ago may have been broken in the WebGL mode. Hopefully those got I reported one. I don't know if they ever fixed. I can't remember what it was. I don't know if they fixed it. But even if you only use this if you don't put that guy in there, it becomes a 2D canvas, and there's a lot of things you can still do. But the cool thing is you write the code here, and your output's over there, and you can set this up so that it's auto refresh, and you get instant feedback. It's a great tool for learning JavaScript, because instead of you get immediate feedback and you get graphical feedback, so it's a lot more interesting than writing Java code that spits out print statements. Here's another utility function that's part of the sandbox. You implement that, and the sandbox page calls this whenever the mouse moves, and this gets continuously drawn, I believe, by the event loop. It just calls this function over and over, and this is where we go in and actually up in the setup here's where we instantiate those color axes. We got 3 color axes. And then down here, this is like the 3D commands that basically you're basically you're creating you're doing an update image, and which will tell it to render the gradient, and then you paste that into the canvas. But then and again, since I'm not using an editor, you go to these steps so this one is drawn without any rotation, and then when you draw the second one, you have to rotate the X, but these push and pops allow you to always return to the normal orientation, which made it a lot easier, because if you didn't put these push and pops, anytime you change something, you'd have to realize that you're rotating it relative to what you did last. So the push and pops give you a little safe area. And then the third frame, you can see again, starting from the normalized reference frame, we rotate the Y and then paste the gradient. All the mouse drag does is go and upgrade what the rotation values would be. That's what allows you to go in and grab a corner of the thing and flip it around. A couple of things I ran into that real quickly. Is it going to do it? Nope, not going to do it. Well, that's interesting. Let's try that again. One thing that I ran into is on the mouse drag. I had to put code in there to make sure that the mouse was on the canvas, because it'll actually detect if you do a mouse drag out here. It'll actually pick that up. It doesn't have to be on the canvas, so you just have to throw a little bit of code in there to make sure that it's on the canvas before you spin things around. Yeah, we'll try this again. So, and that's just one of the things you learn the hard way, because like if I do it down here, notice it doesn't spin, but one of my first cuts is like you could drag around down here. Oh, and the other problem was it also, when I was pulling on the slider, it was causing it to rotate at the same time. So that, interesting stuff in there. Another interesting thing I ran into that was really aggravating is, you guys know how to set the background color of a slider?
Yeah, you
it's
don't
not
mess with sliders.
it's not trivial.
Yeah, you just
And
write
that,
your own.
well, but it's not trivial because it's not supported in the underlying HTML tags. So basically, what you wind up doing, and I think I put it in here, you basically create a div to surround the slider, and then I could change the color of the div. So that was a good exercise in learning stuff the hard way. So that's basically it. Can I answer questions, or people have comments, and just a fun place to play around.
Really cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, Ron, before I forget, if you're okay with it, is this code that you wrote accessible?
Yeah, all you got to do is, and I'll paste this in there.
What I would suggest is drop it into the comments of the meetup session.
Yeah, okay, I can do that.
When you get a chance, you don't have to.
Does the meetup group have a GitHub?
Not one that anyone else knows about.
Yeah, you know what? It's not, because I'm presenting, it's not letting me talk to chat. So I will post it as a comment. Actually, I can do it right here, I think. Boom, boom, boom.
Hey.
There you go. Yeah, you're making a huge assumption about our ability to be organized, Simon.
I think you just clicked the little, that guy.
Yep. So there you go. It's basically it's basically in the open domain, because anybody has the URL, can go bang on it. Again, if you want to play with this, you want to play with the editor, create an account so you don't lose stuff. What you can do is, if you just if you create an account, you log into your account and then select this. I think it gives you an option to copy it into your account so that you can play with the code. I will tell you that I didn't put a lot of comments into here. This was never intended to be a production piece, and if you go through some of this, you may start wondering what I was smoking, because this is all.
Oh, we know what you were smoking, man. Don't worry about it. It's legal now.
I believe that's legal.
Oh, that's
now.
right. It's legal
yeah.
now. Some of this logic is not documented. Oh no, none of the logic is documented. So best of luck with that if you need to figure it out.
Ron, I'm curious if you, and I think P5 is a way better fit for what you were trying to build, but I'm curious if you looked, at 3JS at all for this.
This would be the first I've heard of it. Again, I'm kind of new to the whole JavaScript thing. Although I've been studying it for a year to 1 to 2 years, I haven't done I haven't done really anything for like a production level product. So, it's what was that called?
It's called 3JS, spelled out THREE.js.
That's a similar type of.
It's different. Like I said, P5 is definitely more appropriate for what you were building here.
Sure.
I was just curious if you might have looked at it. I have a feeling it's something you might be interested in checking out.
I will definitely do that. Yeah, so P5, which is based on processing. Processing is all about making something that's relatively simple for non-programmers to use. Their intent was to allow creative types to come in and do interesting graphics or that sort of thing. I find that kind of interesting because the lady that ported this to JavaScript, you got to know some programming in p5.js. I mean, you're gonna have to learn a little. You're gonna have to do probably a bit more than what you would do in processing. Processing is probably it's been around much longer. It's probably more mature. They probably have more widgets that are pre-canned, that kind of thing. But I just thought this was a great playground, with their editor. You can come in here, even if you don't want to do graphics, you can come in here and, if you want to show somebody how JavaScript works, you can come in here and write code and you get instant output. And the fact that it's relative, I went with the 3D thing, but if you, like I said, if you just leave this in the setup, you leave this WebGL argument out, it just pops up in a canvas with the 2D graphics. So you can draw shapes, you can draw lines, you can slide them around. The fact that they remove a whole bunch of nitty gritty bits from you, because all you have to do is write this draw function. You don't have to worry about maintaining the canvas, other than the fact that we're going to at the beginning of the draw, we're just going to clear the canvas. But you'll notice that this doesn't video glitch, not that much anyways. So it's they're only updating this thing between frame, when they can, between frames. So they hide all that stuff from us, which is pretty cool, which would be a good thing for like creative types who don't want to spend too much time with code. So there you go.
Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ron. That was great.
Okay, so
Yeah,
now
for a man that doesn't do JavaScript, doing your first JavaScript presentation, brilliant, awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.